The morning alarm rang through the mining colony like it had every day for the past 3 years. Tejo rolled out of his narrow bunk and stretched his tired muscles. Outside his small window, the red sun of Kepler 442b was rising over the rocky landscape. Another day of digging deep into the planet's crust for rare metals. Tejo pulled on his work clothes and grabbed his tool belt. As the mining foreman, he had to check on all the teams before they went down into the tunnels. The colony was not big, but it housed over 200 people from different worlds. Humans worked alongside blue-skinned Altarians and the tall, thin Corvani. Everyone had come here for the same reason. The planet was rich with valuable ores that powered starships across the galaxy. He walked through the main corridor of the habitat domes. The air recyclers hummed quietly overhead. Through the clear walls, he could see the mining equipment scattered across the red dirt outside. Giant drilling machines and transport vehicles sat waiting for another day of work. "Morning, boss," called Jin Woo as he walked up with a cup of coffee. Jin Woo was Tejo's oldest friend on the colony. They had worked together for 5 years now, ever since leaving Earth. Jin Woo handled all the explosives for the mining operation. If they needed to blast through hard rock, he was the man for the job. "Any problems overnight?" Tejo asked, taking a sip of the hot coffee. "Nothing major. Team 3 had some trouble with their drill in Sector 7, but So Young fixed it before shift change." Jin Woo pointed toward the engineering section. "That woman can fix anything." So Young was the head engineer for the whole colony. She was only 28 but had already saved them millions of credits by keeping the old machines running. Tejo respected her skills and her calm attitude when things went wrong. They walked together toward the control room where the day shift leaders gathered each morning. Hyunwoo, the colony administrator, was already there looking at reports on his tablet. He was a thin man who worried too much about everything, but he kept the paperwork organized and made sure they got paid on time. "We have good news," Hyunwoo said as they entered. "The Galactic Trade Council increased the price for refined platinum. If we can meet our quota this month, everyone gets a bonus." The other team leaders smiled at this news. Extra money meant they could go home to their families sooner or buy better equipment. Tejo assigned the work areas for each team. Sectors 1 through 6 were the main mining areas. Sector 7 was newer and deeper. Sectors 8 and 9 were at the very edge of their territory, almost 30 kilometers from the main colony. "I want everyone back at the surface by 6 tonight," Tejo said. "No exceptions." The transport schedule changed and the last shuttle leaves at 7. After the meeting, the teams headed out to their work areas. Tejo decided to visit the outer sectors to check on progress. He took a small hover vehicle and drove across the rocky ground toward Sector 8. The landscape was empty except for mining markers and the occasional maintenance robot. The ride took almost an hour. When he reached Sector 8, he expected to see the usual activity. 3 miners were supposed to be working there, collecting samples from a new vein of rare earth metals. But the area was quiet. Too quiet. Tejo parked near the entrance to the underground tunnel. The drilling equipment was still running, but he could not see any workers. He called out, but no one answered. The only sound was the wind blowing across the empty land. He checked his radio. "Sector 8 team, please respond. This is Tejo." Static filled his earpiece. He tried different channels but got no answer. This was strange. The radios worked fine in all the other sectors. Tejo grabbed a flashlight and safety helmet from his vehicle. The tunnel entrance was a dark hole in the red rock. Metal supports held up the walls and ceiling. Electric lights were supposed to light the way, but half of them were not working. He walked slowly into the tunnel, calling out every few steps. His footsteps echoed in the narrow space. The air was cool and smelled of dust and metal. After about 50 meters, he found the first piece of equipment. A drilling laser sat abandoned next to a pile of rock samples. The machine was still warm, as if someone had been using it just minutes before. Further down the tunnel, he found more equipment scattered around. Tools were dropped on the ground. A lunchbox was open with half-eaten food inside. Whatever had happened here had happened fast. The workers had left everything behind. Tejo reached the end of the tunnel where the team had been working. The walls were marked with fresh blast holes from the morning's work. But still no sign of the 3 miners. He was about to turn back when his flashlight beam caught something on the ground. Dark stains covered the rocky floor. At first he thought it might be oil from the machines. But as he looked closer, his stomach turned cold. It was blood. A lot of blood. He followed the trail of stains toward a side passage he had not noticed before. This tunnel was natural, not made by human machines. The walls were rough and curved like they had been carved by water over millions of years. 20 meters into the natural tunnel, Tahoe found them. The three miners were arranged against the far wall in a way that made no sense. Their bodies were positioned carefully, almost like a display. Strange symbols were carved into the rock above them. The symbols looked old and alien, nothing like any writing system Tahoe had ever seen. He backed away quickly, his hands shaking as he grabbed his radio. This time he switched to the emergency channel that reached the whole colony. "This is Tahoe in Sector 8. We have a serious problem. I need security and medical teams out here immediately." The response came back full of static, but he could hear Hyunwoo's worried voice. "What kind of problem? Are you injured?" "The Sector 8 team is dead. All three of them." "And whoever did this? They're not human." Tahoe ran back through the tunnels toward his vehicle. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of what he had seen. The careful arrangement of the bodies, the strange symbols, the complete silence that had hidden the attack from the other workers. As he reached the surface, he looked around at the empty landscape with new eyes. Somewhere out there, something was watching them, something that had killed 3 people without making a sound, something that followed rules and rituals that humans did not understand. He started his vehicle and drove back toward the colony as fast as the rough ground would allow. Behind him, the red sun was getting higher in the alien sky. But Tahoe could not shake the feeling that something else was out there in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The peaceful mining operation on Kepler 442b had just become something much more dangerous. And Tahoe knew that the 3 dead miners in Sector 8 were probably just the beginning. The emergency meeting in the colony's main hall was loud and confused. Word about the dead miners had spread quickly, and everyone wanted answers that no one could give. Tahoe sat at the front table with Hyunwoo and the other department heads. His hand still shook when he thought about what he had seen in that tunnel. "We need to contact the Galactic Council right away," said Dr. Mireille, the colony's chief medical officer. She had examined the bodies and her face was pale. "Whatever killed those men used weapons I've never seen before. The wounds were made by something with incredible strength." Hyunwoo was typing rapidly on his communication device. "I've been trying to reach the council for 2 hours. The long-range transmitter is not working properly. We're getting interference on all channels." "What kind of interference?" asked So Young. She had been checking all the colony's systems since the discovery. "Static mostly, but sometimes there are other sounds. Like someone is blocking our signals on purpose." Jinwoo stood up from his seat. "If something is jamming our communications, that means we're dealing with advanced technology." This wasn't some wild animal attack. The room got quiet as people realized what this meant. They were alone on a distant planet with no way to call for help. And something out there had already killed 3 people. Suddenly all the screens in the room flickered and went dark. Then they lit up again, but instead of the usual colony information, they showed static. The static cleared and revealed a face that made everyone gasp. The creature on the screen was tall and covered in dark, scaled skin. Its head was shaped like a lizard's, but larger and more intelligent. Bright yellow eyes stared out from the screen. When it opened its mouth to speak, they could see rows of sharp teeth. "Greetings, prey animals," the creature said in broken galactic standard language. Its voice was deep and harsh. "I am Kethmore of the Veltar hunting clan. You may have heard stories of my people." Several colonists whispered fearfully. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Veltar. They were legendary predators who traveled from world to world, hunting the most dangerous creatures they could find. Most people thought they were just scary stories told to frighten children. "Your species has gained much honor in recent wars," Kethmore continued. "Human warriors have defeated enemies that others feared to face. This makes you worthy prey for the Great Hunt." Tahoe felt his blood turn cold. The Great Hunt was the most sacred ritual of the Veltar people. A young warrior had to kill worthy prey from different worlds to prove himself ready for adulthood. And humans had just become famous enough to be considered worthy. "I have studied your defenses," the alien hunter said. "Your weapons are weak. Your warriors are few, but your reputation says you are clever and brave. This will make the hunt more interesting." Hyunwoo tried to speak into his communication device. "This is Administrator Hyunwoo of Mining Colony 447. We are peaceful civilians under Galactic Council protection. You have no right to threaten us." Kethmore's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. Your council cannot help you now. I have disabled your long-range communications. No ships will come to rescue you. This hunt will continue until I have claimed the skull of your greatest warrior. The screen went dark again, leaving the colonists in frightened silence. How many weapons do we have? Taeho asked So Young. Not many. Some mining lasers, a few security rifles, and Jin Woo's explosives. Nothing designed for combat against something like that. The Veltar are incredibly strong and fast, Dr. Mirai said. I've read medical reports from worlds they've visited before. Their natural armor can stop most projectile weapons. They heal from injuries much faster than humans. So we can't fight it directly, Jin Woo said. But maybe we don't have to. This is our colony. We know every tunnel, every building, every system. That has to count for something. Taeho nodded. We need to get everyone into the main complex and seal the outer buildings. Set up a perimeter with whatever weapons we have. Over the next few hours, the colonists worked frantically to prepare defenses. They brought all the mining equipment into the central area and locked down the access tunnels. So Young rigged motion sensors around the perimeter. Jin Woo placed small explosive charges at key choke points. But even as they worked, people continued to disappear. Dae-Yun, the young communications technician, vanished while trying to repair a relay station. They found her equipment scattered and broken, but no body. An hour later, 2 maintenance workers were discovered missing from the water treatment plant. It's picking us off one by one, Taeho said to his core team. Just like it said it would. Maybe we can reason with it, suggested Mirai. Offer it something else instead of hunting us. The Veltar don't negotiate during a hunt, said So Young. I studied their culture in school. Once they declare someone worthy prey, they won't stop until the hunt is complete or they're dead. Night fell over the colony, and the real terror began. The security cameras caught glimpses of something moving in the shadows between buildings. It was huge and moved with impossible speed. Sometimes it seemed to vanish completely, as if it could become invisible. Taeho was checking the southern perimeter when he heard screaming from the medical center. He ran toward the sound, but by the time he arrived, the screaming had stopped. The medical center's lights were out. He found Dr. Mirai hiding in a supply closet, shaking with fear. It came through the wall, she whispered. Just walked through the metal wall like it wasn't there. It took Nurse Hansel. I saw it lift him up with one hand. Did you see the creature clearly? Yes. It was wearing some kind of armor that bent light around it. That's how it stays invisible. And it had weapons that hummed with energy. Taeho helped Mirai back to the main building where the other survivors had gathered. They now numbered less than 150. In just one day, the Predator had reduced their numbers by a quarter. We need a new plan, Jin Woo said. These defenses aren't working. Actually, So Young said quietly, maybe they are working better than we think. Everyone looked at her. The Veltar could have killed all of us already if it wanted to. But it's taking its time hunting us slowly. That means it's following rules. It wants this to be a proper hunt, not a massacre. How does that help us? Asked Hyunwoo. If it's following hunting rules, then it probably wants to face our strongest fighter in single combat eventually. That means it needs to keep some of us alive until then. Taeho understood what she was saying. So we make ourselves harder to catch. Force it to work for each kill. Maybe we can buy enough time for someone to get a message out. Or maybe, Jinwoo said with a grim smile, we can give this hunter more of a fight than it's expecting. Outside, something roared in the darkness. It was a sound of rage and excitement, like a predator that had just tasted blood and wanted more. The hunt was far from over, and Kethamore was just getting started. But the humans of Mining Colony 447 were not the helpless prey the Veltar warrior expected. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous thing about humanity is what they can do when they have nothing left to lose. 3 days had passed since Kethamore began his hunt, and the survivors were learning to think like prey. They moved in groups, never alone. They slept in shifts, always watching the shadows. And slowly they began to fight back. Taeho crouched in the maintenance tunnel beneath the main building, listening to Jinwoo explain his latest trap. The tunnel was narrow and dark, lit only by small emergency lights. It was one of the few places they felt safe to meet. I've rigged the fusion generator room, Jinwoo whispered. When that thing tries to disable our power, it's going to get a nasty surprise. The blast should be enough to damage even Veltar armor. What about the radiation? Asked So Young. The blast will be contained, mostly. We might lose power for a few hours, but it's better than losing more people. Dr. Mirai checked her medical scanner. We have 37 people left. At this rate, we'll all be dead within a week. Not if we start evening the odds, Tejo said. He had been thinking about their situation constantly. The Veltar was stronger and faster, but it was still just one creature. And it was used to hunting in open spaces, not the tight corridors and complex machinery of a human colony. What do you mean? So Young asked. We stop running and start hunting. Use the mining tunnels to move around unseen. Set traps in places it has to go. Make it come to us instead of letting it pick us off. That evening, they put the plan into action. Hai Jin, the colony's botanist, had discovered something interesting about the local plant life. The purple moss that grew in the lower tunnels released spores that were harmless to humans but toxic to most alien respiratory systems. If we can get the creature to breathe enough of these spores, it should slow it down, she explained as she ground the moss into powder, maybe even make it sick. They spread the spore powder through the air vents in the outer buildings, creating a trap zone. Then So Young used the colony's maintenance robots to create false heat signatures, making it look like people were hiding in those buildings. The trap worked better than they hoped. Around midnight, the sensors detected movement in Building C. Through the security cameras, they watched as Kethmore moved through the corridors, searching for prey. At first, he moved with his usual speed and grace, but after a few minutes, his movements became slower and less steady. It's working, So Young said excitedly. Look at how it's stumbling. But their celebration was short-lived. Kethmore suddenly stopped and looked directly at one of the security cameras. Even through the grainy image, they could see intelligence in those yellow eyes. The creature had figured out it was a trap. Instead of retreating, Kethmore roared in anger and began destroying everything in the building. He tore through walls with his bare hands and smashed equipment with weapons that glowed like miniature suns. In less than 10 minutes, Building C was completely destroyed. So much for that idea, Jinwoo muttered. But Tejo was studying the footage carefully. Wait, look at this part again. He replayed the video. For just a moment, when Kethmore was destroying the wall panels, his cloaking device flickered and failed. They could see him clearly. A massive creature covered in natural armor plates, but also wearing some kind of technological suit. The spores did affect him, Dr. Mirai said. Look at how he's breathing. And the way he's favoring his left side. I think we actually heard it. More importantly, So Young added, we know the cloaking device can be disrupted. If we can figure out how to jam it permanently. The next day brought new problems. Kethmore had apparently decided that subtle hunting was no longer working. He began attacking the colony directly, using powerful energy weapons to blast holes in their defenses. During one attack, he cornered So Young in the engineering bay while she was trying to repair a damaged generator. Tejo heard her screaming over the radio and ran to help, grabbing the largest mining laser he could find. He arrived to see the massive predator standing over So Young, who was trapped behind an overturned table. Kethmore held a curved blade that seemed to be made of some kind of energy. The weapon hummed and glowed with deadly power. Hey! Tejo shouted, firing the mining laser. The beam struck Kethmore in the shoulder, spinning him around. The Veltar roared in surprise and pain. His cloaking device flickered again, showing burns in his natural armor where the laser had hit. Kethmore turned toward Tejo with renewed interest. This small human had actually wounded him. In his harsh voice he spoke. You fight well for prey. What is your name, warrior? Tejo, he answered, keeping the laser aimed at the creature. Tejo, Kethmore repeated slowly. You will be my final trophy. The skull of the alpha human will bring me great honor. The predator raised his energy blade, but before he could strike, an explosion rocked the building. Jinwoo had detonated charges in the corridor outside, collapsing part of the ceiling between them. Run! Jinwoo shouted as he appeared in the doorway. This whole section is coming down. Tejo grabbed So Young, and they escaped through an emergency exit as the engineering bay collapsed behind them. They had bought time, but Kethmore was now even more determined to finish his hunt. That night, the remaining survivors gathered in the deepest part of the mining complex. The tunnels here were too narrow for the large predator to move easily, and the thick rock walls blocked most scanning devices. We can't keep this up much longer, Hyunwoo said. He looked exhausted and defeated. Every time we heard it, it just gets angrier. Good, said Tejo. An angry enemy makes mistakes. "What are you thinking?" asked Jinwoo. "The Veltar follows hunting traditions. It wants to face me in single combat to finish this properly, so we give it what it wants, but on our terms." Dr. Mireille shook her head. "You can't fight that thing alone. It's 3 times your size and has weapons we can barely understand." "I don't plan to fight fair," Taeho said with a grim smile. "I plan to fight human." Over the next few hours, they prepared for what would likely be their final battle. So Young worked to repair their best weapons and create new surprises. Jinwoo prepared explosive charges that could be triggered remotely. Heejin gathered more of the toxic spores and created concentrated doses. But as they worked, Kethmore was preparing too. The creature had learned from their earlier traps. He began hunting more carefully, using advanced sensors to detect their movements. One by one, he found their hiding places. By dawn, only 12 humans remained alive. They were trapped in the deepest part of the mine, with Kethmore systematically destroying their escape routes. The final confrontation was coming whether they were ready or not. But Taeho had one more surprise planned. Something that might just turn the tables on a predator who thought he understood human nature. Sometimes the best weapon isn't the strongest or the smartest. Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy never sees coming. The explosion started before sunrise. Kethmore had grown tired of the slow hunt and decided to end it with overwhelming force. The main mining complex shook as energy blasts tore through the upper levels, collapsing tunnels and sealing escape routes. Taeho pressed himself against the rock wall as dust and debris fell from the ceiling. Around him, the last 11 survivors huddled in the deepest part of the mine. They were trapped 300 meters underground with nowhere left to run. "He's bringing the whole place down," Jinwoo said, checking his explosives detonator. "If we don't get out soon, we'll be buried alive." "That might be better than what he has planned for us," Dr. Mireille whispered. She was treating Hyunwoo's injured leg with the last of their medical supplies. The colony administrator had been hurt when part of the ceiling collapsed on their escape route. Another explosion shook the tunnels, closer this time. Emergency lights flickered and went out, leaving them in almost complete darkness. The only light came from So-young's hand scanner and the glow from Jinwoo's detonator controls. "How many charges do we have left?" Taeho asked. 6 major ones, maybe a dozen smaller ones," Jinwoo replied. "But if I set them all off down here, we'll kill ourselves along with him." "Maybe that's the point," said Heejin quietly. "Better to die fighting than to be hunting trophies." Taeho looked at the faces around him. These people had trusted him to lead them, and now they were all going to die because he couldn't find a way to stop one alien hunter. But even as despair filled his heart, part of him refused to give up. "There has to be another way," he said. "What way?" Hyunwoo asked bitterly. "We're out of weapons, out of tricks, and almost out of time." A new sound echoed through the tunnels. Heavy footsteps getting closer. Kethmore had found them. The Veltar's voice carried through the rock corridors, speaking in his harsh alien language before switching to broken galactic standard. "Come out, little prey animals. The hunt is almost finished. Make it easy on yourselves." Jinwoo started to activate his detonator, but Taeho stopped him. "Wait, I have an idea, but I need you to trust me." "What kind of idea?" "The kind that might get us all killed, but might also save us." Taeho took a deep breath. "I'm going to face him alone, but not the way he expects." Before anyone could argue, Taeho stood up and walked toward the main tunnel. Behind him, his friends called out in whispered protests, but he didn't stop. The footsteps were getting louder. He rounded a corner and came face to face with Kethmore. The Veltar looked even more terrifying in the confined space of the tunnel. His massive form filled the corridor from floor to ceiling. The creature's armor was damaged from their earlier fights, showing burn marks and scratches, but he still moved with deadly grace. His yellow eyes glowed in the darkness as he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Ah, Taeho," Kethmore said. "The alpha human comes to face his death with honor. This is good. I was beginning to think your species were all cowards." "I didn't come here to fight you," Taeho said quietly. The predator tilted his massive head. "No, then why are you here?" "I came to offer you a deal." Kethmore laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Humans do not negotiate with hunters." "You are prey. I am predator. This is the natural order, is it?" Taeho asked. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're the one who's trapped." The alien's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "You destroyed our communications. No one knows you're here. If you kill us all, there won't be any witnesses to your great hunt. How will your people know that you defeated worthy prey if there's no one left to tell the story? For the first time since the hunt began, Kethmore hesitated. The Veltar culture valued honor above all else, but honor without recognition was meaningless. A hunter who killed in secret gained no status from his victories. You suggest that I spare some of you to spread word of my victory? I suggest that maybe there's more honor in showing mercy than in finishing a hunt against trapped prey, Teho said. Your people call themselves the greatest hunters in the galaxy. But what kind of hunter needs to destroy a whole colony to catch 12 unarmed miners? Kethmore's face twisted with anger. You dare question my honor? I'm questioning your methods. If you're really the great hunter you claim to be, then prove it. Face me in fair combat. Just you and me, no weapons, no tricks. If you win, you get your trophy and the others go free. If I win, you leave this planet and never come back. The Veltar stared at him for a long moment. Teho could see the internal struggle in those alien eyes. The creature's pride was warring with his hunting instincts. You cannot defeat me in combat, human. I am twice your size and 3 times your strength. Then you have nothing to lose by accepting. Behind him, Teho heard Jinwoo moving closer through the tunnels. His friend was probably trying to get into position for a desperate attack, but Teho hoped it wouldn't come to that. Kethmore slowly reached for his energy blade and activated it. The weapon hummed to life, casting eerie shadows on the tunnel walls. Very well. I accept your challenge, but I will not fight without weapons. Choose your weapon, human. Teho looked around the tunnel. There were no mining tools here, no improvised weapons. Just rock and dust and the portable scanner in his belt. He pulled out the scanner and held it up. This is my weapon. Kethmore laughed again. A scanning device? Have you lost your mind? Maybe, but this scanner contains something more powerful than any blade. The alien hunter raised his energy weapon, ready to strike. And what is that? The memory of everyone I'm fighting for. Kethmore paused, confused by this response. In that moment of hesitation, Jinwoo triggered the first of his explosive charges. The blast came from behind the Veltar, collapsing part of the tunnel and cutting off his escape route. Now you're trapped too, Teho said as dust settled around them. The only way out is through me. But instead of attacking, Kethmore did something unexpected. He deactivated his energy blade and stepped back. You fight with honor, human. Even when facing certain death, you protect your pack. This shows true warrior spirit. Does that mean you'll let us go? No, Kethmore said sadly. It means I will make your death quick and painless. You have earned that much respect. The predator raised his blade again, and this time there was genuine regret in his eyes. But before he could strike, another voice echoed through the tunnels. It was So Young calling out desperately. Teho, the emergency beacon is working. I'm getting a signal from a Galactic Council ship. Kethmore roared in frustration. If Council ships were coming, his hunt would be interrupted. Worse, he would be forced to flee before claiming his final trophy. It seems your luck has returned, human, the alien said. But luck will not save you forever. The predator turned and began tearing through the collapsed tunnel with his bare hands, trying to reach an escape route before the rescue ships arrived. But Jinwoo's explosives had done their work well. Kethmore was trapped in the deep tunnels just like his prey. The final confrontation was about to begin, and this time there would be no escape for either hunter or hunted. The rescue ships were still hours away, but Kethmore could not wait. His honor demanded that he finish the hunt before outside interference arrived. The Veltar hunter stood in the main mining chamber, his massive form silhouetted against the emergency lighting. He had dragged Heejin into the open space and was using her as bait. Come, Teho. His voice echoed through the cavern. Face me now or watch your packmate die slowly. Teho emerged from the tunnel entrance, his hands empty of weapons. Behind him, he could hear Jinwoo and the others moving into position. But he had made them promise not to interfere unless absolutely necessary. This had become personal between him and the alien hunter. The mining chamber was vast, carved out by years of excavation work. Huge machines sat silent in the shadows like sleeping giants. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, supported by metal beams and cables. It was here, surrounded by the tools of human industry, that the final battle would take place. Let her go, Teho said, walking slowly toward the center of the chamber. Your fight is with me. Kethmore released Hyojin, who ran quickly to safety behind one of the mining machines. The Veltar drew his ceremonial hunting blade, a weapon that gleamed with its own inner light. The blade was as long as Teho's arm and carved with symbols that spoke of countless victories. This blade has taken the lives of warriors from 50 different worlds, Kethmore said proudly. Your skull will be its greatest trophy. The alien raised the weapon above his head, preparing for the killing blow. His yellow eyes blazed with anticipation. After days of hunting, the moment of victory had finally arrived. And then Taeho began to sing. His voice was quiet at first, barely audible over the hum of the mining equipment. But slowly, the ancient melody filled the chamber. It was a song his grandmother had taught him when he was very young, a traditional Korean lullaby about a mother waiting for her children to come home. Kethmore froze, his blade suspended in midair. The alien's eyes widened as the human's voice grew stronger, more confident. The melody was simple but beautiful, full of love and longing and hope. Taeho sang about his wife Youngmi waiting for him back on Earth. He sang about his daughter Sujin, who would be starting school soon. He sang about Jinwoo's family and So Young's parents, and all the people who loved the colonists and were praying for their safe return. Tears began to flow down Taeho's face as he sang, but his voice never wavered. He sang about the beauty of life, about the pain of loss, about the love that connects all living beings across the vast emptiness of space. The effect on Kethmore was immediate and profound. The massive predator began to shake, his weapon trembling in his hands. For the first time in decades of hunting, memories flooded back that he had tried to forget. His mate, Velsara, singing to their cubs in the safety of their nest. The gentle melody she would hum while grooming their young. The way her voice had sounded when she called his name in the moments before the rival clan's attack. The silence that followed when he returned to find them all dead. Kethmore had become a hunter to forget that pain. He had traveled from world to world, claiming trophies and honor, trying to fill the emptiness in his soul with victory and glory. But now this small human song brought it all back, really. Blade fell from Kethmore's nerveless fingers and clattered on the stone. Taeho finished the lullaby and stood, quietly in the center of the chamber. Around them, the mining equipment hummed its mechanical song, but the only sound that mattered was the alien's ragged breathing. Why? Kethmore whispered. Why do you sing at the moment of your death? Because, Taeho said gently, I wanted you to remember what you're destroying. Not just my life, but all the lives connected to it. My wife will never see me again. My daughter will grow up without her father. All because you think killing makes you strong. The Veltar sank to his knees, his massive frame shaking with emotion. I had forgotten, he said in his own language, then switched back to standard. I had forgotten why I began hunting. It was to avenge my family. But somewhere, I lost myself in the killing. It's not too late to stop, Taeho said. You can choose to be something other than a killer. Kethmore looked up at him with eyes full of ancient pain. My people will call me weak. I will lose all honor if I spare you. Maybe there's more honor in choosing compassion than in following tradition. For a long moment, they stared at each other across the chamber. Predator and prey, alien and human, killer and victim. But now they were also something else. Two fathers who had lost everything and found themselves alone in an uncaring universe. The sound of engines overhead broke the spell. The Galactic Council rescue ships had arrived early, their searchlights probing down through the colony's broken domes. Soon they would send troops to investigate the situation. Kethmore slowly stood and picked up his fallen blade. For a terrifying moment, Taeho thought the alien had changed his mind. But instead of attacking, the Veltar hunter performed a ritual gesture, holding the weapon horizontally across his chest. By the ancient codes of my people, Kethmore said formally, I acknowledge you as a worthy opponent who has shown honor in defeat. Your courage has earned you the right to live. The alien warrior activated his cloaking device and began to fade from view. But before he disappeared completely, he spoke one last time. Sing for your children, Taeho of Earth. Let them know that even in the darkest places, there is still beauty worth preserving. And then he was gone, vanishing into the shadows as the rescue teams flooded into the chamber. Later, as Taeho was reunited with his surviving friends and prepared to leave the mining colony forever, he often thought about that final moment. The official reports would say that the alien hunter had been driven off by superior firepower, but Taeho knew the truth. Sometimes the most powerful weapon against hatred is not violence, but the simple act of showing your enemy your own heart. In a universe filled with predators and prey, the greatest strength might be the courage to remain human. 6 months later, Tejo sat in his backyard on Earth, watching his daughter play in the garden while his wife prepared dinner. As the sun set over their small town, he began to hum the old lullaby his grandmother had taught him. Somewhere among the stars, he hoped that Kethmore had found his own peace. And perhaps on some distant world, another hunter would choose mercy over violence because one human had dared to sing in the face of death. The universe was vast and often cruel, but it was also full of small moments of grace, and sometimes that was enough to change everything.